ടൈറ്റാനിക് മുതൽ ഹാരി പോട്ടർ വരെ 30 വർഷമായി ഹോളിവുഡിലെ ദൃശ്യവിസ്മയത്തിന് ചുക്കാൻ പിടിക്കുന്നവരിൽ പ്രമുഖനായ ശ്രീ മൈക്കൽ കാർപ്പാണ് ഇന്ന് നമുക്കൊപ്പം. Welcome, Mr. Michael Karp. So my first question will be, what drew you to movie industry?
Well, I grew up in Hollywood, and when I was young, everyone I knew was in the film business. You know, that's going to elementary school and junior high school. There were big actors and directors. One day I went to school in the 6th grade, and everyone was congratulating one of the kids because his father had gotten an Oscar for best cinematography for the film Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. And that was the famous cameraman, Conrad Hall. So, and my stepfather is also an actor. He's retired now, but he was on the soap opera Days of Our Lives for years. So I grew up in the film business, so it was completely natural. And the film industry was mainly in London and Hollywood at that point. But since then, it's spread all over the world.
Somebody asked me to recollect the VFX stuff, which I have captured in my mind. So no doubt, I will stick to something, to that liquid metal, that killer robot of Terminator 2. How far it has reached now from that stage?
Pretty far. Basically, visual effects started in 1902 with A Journey to the Moon by Méliès. And that was very old school analog, of course, in 1902. And then in 1977, on Star Wars, they were still doing things analog with miniature spaceships, but the cameras were run by robots. And so computers were running them, so that was a hybrid technique. And so when I graduated from film school in Hollywood in 1983, I became a motion controller robot cameraman right away, just by accident. And then since then, there's been a big shift away from miniatures to pure digital computer graphics. So you'll see in films today, the films are not shot with film anymore.
Hollywood has left analog media completely?
You know, they're still working on some film shoots like Batman versus Superman was shot in film. You know, I worked for Kodak for 6 months when I worked on X-Men 2. And when I worked in a camera store for 6 years, and so I was all about film. But in reality, film is obsolete, silver halide, and digital just blows it away.
There are heaps of Indian brains which are working behind all the visual effects in Hollywood movie industry. But when we talk about digitally some good movie, we look forward to Hollywood. What do you think? What's the contradictory between that?
I see the Indian film industry becoming very sophisticated. So I've been living in India for 3 years and working in the Hollywood film industry here, and I see a huge amount of sophistication in Bollywood filmmaking. And then, of course, India has some extremely high quality digital artists and filmmakers, and the cost is very low of labor. So Hollywood has most of the big Hollywood visual effects studios have huge operations in India right now. You really can't watch a Hollywood film these days without seeing huge numbers of Indian names and Indian work. It's really a massive shift. So whatever happened before doesn't matter to me because I'm just coming to it fresh. And I see beautiful things happening here.
There should be some physical logic when you recreate something, a reality. That is not a reality. That is faking a reality actually. So you have to keep the balance. So what is the key in getting the shots looking so good?
Okay. First of all, in filmmaking and in art, emotional truth is more important than real truth. Visual effects are everywhere. They're invisible effects where you don't even know they're there, and they're there just to enhance and advance the vision of just a regular creative filmmaker. And then there's other visual effects that are right in front of you. Avengers and Terminator 5. We did so much work on Avengers 2. Explosions, I mean, you know, when they're in the subway car, they're actually on a green screen. I mean, you know, some of the films, like when I worked on Alice in Wonderland 1 and I worked on 2, every scene is a visual effects shot. But even though, you know, because they're all on green screen, or one of the few films I did not work on recently was Jungle Book. My friends in Bangalore and Los Angeles worked on that. Everything is fake in that movie,
Yep.
Except for the little kid in front of the green screen.
You have worked with personalities like Michael Jackson that we have said before, to James Cameron. So How do you differentiate?
Well, James Cameron writes some of the most incredible love stories. But he's difficult to work with on set. He can be a screamer. I think I'm the only person in the world that Jim Cameron has never yelled at. So I worked for him on staff for 6 years and longer than that in a freelance period. And he always looked like he wanted to scream at me, but he could never figure out a reason. Okay. Now the director of Pearl Harbor, Michael Bay, he did yell at me.
Okay.
And of course I did a great job for him. We actually went to the same film school, Art Center College of Design in Pasadena.
And working with Michael Jackson.
Yeah, well, that was an experience. So I had a very good time working with him. The film I worked with him on, we spent about 6 weeks doing a featurette called Ghosts. Ghosts is a sequel to Thriller. And what happens in this film is he has this haunted mansion, and all the little kids in the neighborhood want to come and play with him. And the parents and the mayor of the town don't like this idea at all, for obvious allegorical reasons. A very overweight guy starts moonwalking and dancing, okay, and breakdancing. But you know what? It's Michael Jackson in a suit.
Yeah.
It's just unbelievable, completely convincing. And the guy, Michael Jackson, I was working with him as Michael Jackson, and he walked by me in the suit. I didn't know it was him in the suit. So the biggest movie magic I've seen is actually in old-fashioned effects, which was this suit.
The biggest fake you have created in the screen, if I ask you.
Oh.
And the hardest you have faced ever, the challenge, which you have felt like you won't be able to do it on time or something like that.
Terminator 2 3D was pretty challenging. I mean, so just being on the set with Jim Cameron screaming at me in a sandstorm at 3 in the morning with the robot cameras going and Arnold Schwarzenegger running around, and we'd have 50-gallon petroleum bombs blowing up buildings. I mean, just working in these very difficult analog situations on set where there's no sleep and there's Jim Cameron screaming at you. I mean, when we worked on Terminator 2 3D is a special venue. So it just plays in the theme parks in Universal. So we spent $50 million on a 5-minute film. So per minute, it's the most expensive film ever made. So that's like $10 million a minute.
And you have used puppets for that?
Oh, I've done a lot of Arnold Schwarzenegger puppets. So as far as puppets on Terminator 2, that's 1990, so computer graphics wasn't very advanced then. I had little puppets this big that I animated of the Terminator jumping off of liquid nitrogen tanks and these skeletons moving around. And then on True Lies, Arnold is a spy and he's flying around this Harrier jet. But I'm actually flying the Harrier jet. The Harrier jet, it's 5th scale, and I've got this little tiny Arnold Schwarzenegger puppet that I'm running, like an animatronic at Disneyland. So I've done some crazy stuff.
Okay, and what you are looking forward now for any evolutionary change is going to happen in the visual effects industry?
The only big change is there's a camera that was just introduced that could revolutionize a lot of stuff because it captures in 3 dimensions the full scene. This only came out a couple months ago at NAB, but the camera is very large, so you wouldn't have to do any match move. You don't have to shoot green screens because it actually captures in full 3 dimensions. Every frame. It's like 700 megs per frame of data. So actually, it could put a lot of people out of work and end a lot of careers. But this camera is very large. It's about 6 feet long, so it's not going to fit into these action sequences that we're doing in Fast and Furious 7 and the like. And also, it didn't seem like the lens went very wide angle. So there's a friend of mine named Robert Stromberg who got an Oscar for Avatar as production designer, and then he went on to direct the Disney film Maleficent. So he and David Stump have been doing some tests with this new camera, but I'm not sure whether it's going to penetrate and see things. So that's the only big, huge revolution. Some of the big revolutions I've seen were like 5 or 10 years ago.
Let me wind up. Now we are in Kerala. Have you been to Kerala before?
This is only my 2nd time in Kerala. I actually know a great deal, and I have admiration and respect for the beauty and the communist mentality of Kerala. Yeah, so I know quite a bit about this place.
Okay, that's his business.
And of course, and a lot of the people I work with
Yep.
in Mumbai or from Kerala.
Okay, that's the spirit, and so nice to have you here. Thanks a lot, Mike.
Thank you.